laggy at the end. Look, I'm so good, man. Get on my level, bro. Hey, get punched in the face. I got this.
Yo, what is going on, Guardians, and welcome back to another Destiny 2 gameplay video. And in this video, in the background, you're going to be watching some gameplay. This was all in one sitting. This is some Iron Banner gameplay of me playing on my Warlock. Yeah, playing my Dawnblade build, and having a lot of fun with it. You're going to see pretty much exclusively old-fashioned and Rattler, and the Attunement of Sky on the Dawnblade. So in this video, just kind of showcasing what you can do with mobility in this game. You do have some mobility options already available to you. And the way that I play my Dawnblade is highly mobile. Use my vertical space a lot. It really just fits my play style. And I'm thinking in the future, I'm thinking about this March 27th Go Fast update and all the changes that are coming to mobility. And then other sandbox changes as well. And we don't know exactly everything that's going to be inside of that update. In fact, we're supposed to find out some more details today in the This Week at Bungie update. It should be dropping here pretty soon, actually. And if there's a lot of good information in there, then I may just do another follow-up video. I'll do a This Week at Bungie breakdown. A twababa, if you will. I'll do another twababa and talk about the update and my thoughts on the information included. But in this video, you're going to see a lot of mobility and plays that involve moving around my opponents in a way that sort of plays with their line of sight and utilizing the skills available to me, like the Icarus Dash, which I have fallen in love with. So I really want to talk about why this Go Fast update is important and what it means for the way that the Crucible, specifically PvP, is going to play out. So mobility matters a lot in shooters like this, especially when one of the biggest criticisms we hear about the game is that there's not a lot of big play potential, and there's not a lot of hero moments, right? Now, some of the biggest, coolest plays that I ever had in Destiny 1 were just as much about the way that I moved as much as they were about how accurate of a shooter I was. So currently, most of your plays just come down to who hits more shots. It's a lot of a stand and deliver sort of a meta. Stand in this lane with your Uriels or your anti, because those are the things that hit most consistently, and see who gets more bullets in the other guy. It's very stand and deliver-esque. But when you have new mobility options, when mobility is a whole new sort of area of expertise, and you have a lot of skills that you can do in terms of your mobility, it opens up a whole new genre of play styles. And when you have those mobility options, you can pull off some really cool maneuvers, and you can already do that a little bit in Destiny 2. And I wanted to showcase some of that in my gameplay here in this video. You can see how my movement played into my ability to outplay multiple opponents back to back to back, getting multi-kills and staying alive. And hopefully you enjoy that gameplay. But one of the reasons that mobility matters is because it widens the skill gap. When you have a game that lets you move in creative ways, it widens the skill gap. It makes it so that better players who've been around a while, players who've been playing the game more, start to rise to the top. And there's a very clear sort of, echelon, tier of gamer, where you have a less skilled gamer. There's nothing wrong with that, but maybe they've played less of the game. In my opinion, matchmaking is a big factor. You don't want to put them against a lot of players who are better than they are. You want to keep them around their skill level with just a couple of players higher in the lobby. But in general, the better player should always outperform the less skilled player. And there are mechanics in games to help sort of even out that skill gap so that lesser skilled players can still compete. Things like Bloom. Bloom is a mechanic that's introduced into the game so that less skilled players can stand a chance, because sometimes it's up to RNG. The greater skilled player could be aiming perfectly and pulling the trigger at the right times, but Bloom says you're not going to hit, randomly decides you're not going to hit, while Bloom, the RNG, the randomness for the other guy, the less skilled player, favors him, particularly just the roll of the dice is in his favor that time. And even though he was less accurate, he still gets the kill. So Bloom is another thing that sort of lessens skill gap. So we need things that widen the skill gap, that let a skilled player sense how skilled they are. We need things that separate really skilled players from less skilled players, and that's not about being pompous. It's not about being arrogant. It's that a player wants to see their personal growth. A player wants to know when they are performing better than they used to perform. And when you have a very narrow skill gap, it's hard to gauge personal growth. It really is. So when you allow the player to pull off some really cool things if they're more skilled, then they feel more rewarded for their time invested in a game. And I think that most players would echo that. The more they played Destiny 1, the more they were able to master particular skills like the use of Shade Step, like utilizing Titan Skating, not in a reckless way, but in an intelligent way, a strategic way. All kinds of things that we could do in Destiny 1 and other shooters as well that are out there. I think about Fortnite. One of the things that separates great players from not so great players is some of the ways that they move around the map using their building, and the way that they move around their opponents and their opponents' structures using builds on the fly. And so that's some of the most interesting gameplay to watch, is people who are really good builders as well as very good shooters. So Destiny needs something like that. And when you open up new mobility options to the player, you get a very dynamic gameplay, the possibility for making big hero moments and big plays. And those plays, they hinge just as much on your movement as they do your accuracy with a weapon. So in a lane team shooter like this, mobility gives, not only does it open up new options, but it also gives you confidence. In a lane shooter, a team shooter like Destiny 2 is, mobility gives players the confidence to peek lanes, right? Because if they know they can move out of trouble quickly, they may be more likely to peek a lane instead of just standing on the other side of a choke point and hard scoping with the aerials, right? They may feel more confident moving around the map and taking risks, and they may feel more confident pushing multiple opponents, and they may feel more confident pushing when they're not at full health. Things like this. So when you have new mobility options in the game like this March 27th update hopefully will do, you're going to get more dynamic gameplay. We need that, right? We absolutely need that. Destiny 2 needs to be less stagnant and more dynamic in the way that it plays. Absolutely, 100%. So, another thing I would say, why does mobility matter? Well, it gives players an area of potential personal growth. I touched on this earlier. But it's another area of your gameplay that you can see personal growth. The more, it's like one of those things that you can just feel, you know, when you're in the groove and you're like, man, I don't normally move this well, but I pulled off this really cool maneuver. I juked this guy out, and I don't think I could have done that 2 months ago. You know what I mean? So it's just another area where you can gauge personal growth. It gives you an area to focus on. And we saw a lot of players searching on YouTube in Destiny 1 for things like how to juke opponents. We saw a very common search item was how to Titan Skate. You know, these mobility things that we had in Destiny 1. How to use Twilight Garrison. That was one of my most viewed videos in Destiny 1, was how to use the Twilight Garrison. And people like to learn how to be very mobile. They really do. It's because it's a really rewarding feeling when you learn how to master those things. So while these changes that are coming with the March 27th update may open up new avenues for hero moments and big play potential, and while it may make the Crucible, the PvP experience in Destiny 2, it may make it more dynamic, the other thing that I would say is that it does need to be supplemented by a good weapon tuning and subclass balancing. The game is really not going to get a lot better if mobility is the only thing that changes on March 27th. I think the players are hungry for more than just that. That is one area where we definitely need an overhaul. I'm glad it's happening. But we also need an update to the way that weapons perform, and the sandbox just needs to be, well, in terms of the weapons that are being used and the subclasses that are being used, man, this game really needs to be shaken up. We need some diversity, and we need it bad. So I hope that while we get these great mobility changes on March 27th, I hope that they are supplemented by a weapon tuning balance and a subclass tuning balance. I really hope we get that, because that's honestly just going to give Destiny 2 this really fresh feeling that it needs, in my opinion, in order to really thrive and succeed down the road. So thank you for watching the video. I hope that you enjoyed the gameplay, and I think I've got a little bit more gameplay. I'm just going to cut out the commentary and let you watch a few more plays before we wrap the video up. Feel free to leave a comment in the comment section. Did you enjoy the plays? Did you enjoy the gameplay? What plays in particular did you enjoy? Do you agree with the things that I had to say? Do you have your own opinions to add into the mix? Feel free to let me know. I do actually, despite what I might say on Twitter, I do still read the comment section, even though sometimes on Twitter I'm like, man, why do I subject myself to this? Because y'all are mean sometimes. I do still come back and keep reading those comments, so feel free to leave them for me. All right, guys, I will catch you in the Crucible.